Hello, friends. We're back again. It's Fightful Overbooked. It's Saturday, March the 18th. Let's dig some news because it's your favorite time of the weekend. And I'm the drive guy on the weekends. I just show up, and that's when I show up to work, Jeremy Lambert, is every single weekend on Fightful Overbooked.
Do you work here? I've been trying to get you fired. It's not working well, which shows you the kind of power that I have, apparently.
You know what helps? Doing a show, producing a show with Jimmy Van.
Jimmy Van doesn't like me, so I don't know how I'm still employed.
He likes me. We had a wonderful conversation the other day.
Did you? Can you disclose this conversation here on Newsworthy?
I cannot.
No,
Maybe when we do our sit-down expose on Fightful as a whole, can I tell this story?
Oh, okay. Well, fair enough. That's when I'm going to get fired, when we do the Fightful documentary. That's when I'm going to learn. Just when Vince fired Jeff Jarrett on television, that's when Jimmy's going to fire me. Just when this documentary comes out, I'm going to watch it. Jimmy's going to be like, that Lambert guy, fucking fired. He needs to get out of here. Like, hey, cool. That's how I learned of this. Thank you, Jimmy Van.
Have you considered holding up Jimmy Van for money going into a WrestleMania weekend? It's coming up.
Oh, yeah, I say WrestleMania weekend's coming up, so let me see if I can hold them up for some cash here. All right, this is a good plan, Joel. See how this goes for me.
I see nothing wrong with the plan. Maybe if people leave a thumbs up on the video, they can get the plan into motion for us. Jeremy, it's 5 news items on the board, as always, written by you. Do you want to preface anything before we dig in? Because I can tell you right now, it's Steven Jensen week, and you'll find out why.
I want to preface this by saying wrestling has more than one royal liar.
And let's start with the royal liar himself. Cody Rhodes says he snorted pre-workout before the on me match. If you thought for 1 minute that I was going to lead off with this article, buddy, you have me so incredibly wrong. Oh my goodness. Talking to Hot 106 with Mike D, Cody Rhodes, the best liar in the business, talking about his all-in experience, his StarCast experience, talking about the infamous referee story with Ted DiBiase. What are we doing?
He's told this story before. You mentioned StarCast. Like, he's told this story before. The fuck on me match where it was a SmackDown 6-man. It was Ezekiel Jackson, Sin Cara, and Daniel Bryan against Barrett, Cody, and Ted DiBiase Jr. And he tells it of like Barrett gets kicked in the dick twice by Sin Cara. Barrett tags out to DiBiase, and Sin Cara tags Danielson when he was supposed to tag Ezekiel. He's supposed to tag Ezekiel Jackson. And Ezekiel Jackson, he's in his hometown. They're in Rhode Island. And like, he's supposed to run wild. This is supposed to be like his big moment and everything. But he tagged Danielson by accident. So Danielson just does his spot. This is supposed to be like a 3-4 segment match, Cody says, and it's only 1 segment. So Danielson does his spot. He hits the running drop kick in the corner, and he pins DiBiase, and DiBiase doesn't kick out, or there's no save, kicks out too late. So the ref counts it as a shoot, and he counts the 3, and they get to the back, and everybody's like confused and stuff. I rewatched this match, and you can tell like everybody's just like very confused. Danielson's like, haha, and then he realized he wins. He's like, yeah, we got him. And everybody else is like looking around. Cody's looking around. Barrett's looking around. And Cody's like, should we attack them? And they're like, no, we shouldn't attack them. And then they just walk to the back. Vince is there waiting. Vince is like, what happened? And DiBiase just comes back. He's like, that referee tried to on me. and so like he's told this story before. It's a very famous story. Him snorting pre-workout is apparently a new addition to this story because I've not heard this portion before. And this is where I love wrestlers and wrestling interviews because so many of these guys do so many interviews. They're asked so many of the same questions and everything. But like they're so good at just throwing in a new anecdote to make it a fresh story. And apparently, Cody's new anecdote was that before the match, Michael Hayes is like, what are you guys doing tonight? And Cody's like, we're going to tear the roof off this place, just snorting some pre-workout, and then they go out there and have this shitty match that lasts 1 segment when it was supposed to last 4 segments.
Oh my God. You've never snorted pre-workout, have you?
I've never snorted anything of the sort, Joel Pearl.
I don't know. Maybe the commenters have. I've never done it either, but so I'm reading through the quote, and the referee, you know who the referee was in that match in 2011?
It was Rod Zapata.
Do you know what Rod Zapata also famously botched?
Mania 35.
There you go, and he was fined for that too. Not to bury.
He tried to on Ronda Rousey.
That's right. I love it. I do love that they keep peeling back layers on this story. Eventually, you're going to get like the Vince McMahon side of things, and it's going to be absolutely batshit bonkers, makes no sense at all. I have so much cleaning up and editing to do on this now because we said the F word way too many times.
Why do we have to clean that up?
I got to add the beep here and there.
It's Ted DiBiase Jr.'s fault. He's the one who said it. That's what happened on this show. The referee tried to F on him. There, I'll clean it up for you.
Oh, thank you. That makes it so much easier after we've already gone through the whole story.
My friend, speaking of snorting stuff, my friend in middle school, we watched Jackass, and Steve-O infamously snorts wasabi in that movie for people who have not seen it.
I remember.
So my friend decides he's just gonna snort everything possible. So we would crush up pretzels at lunch, and he would snort those, anything we could mash together and crush up and put on the lunch table. He just snort this stuff at lunch. This is every day for a good week. And then he realized it probably wasn't good for him. And so we stopped doing it. But there you go. There's a snorting story for everybody. I've never done anything of the sort, but I do have a friend who was the Jackass influence on the world. Everybody, just at lunch for an entire week, if we could crush it up, mash it up, cheat, whatever it was, it didn't matter. If we could get it into tiny enough bits to where it would snort up a straw, he was snorting it.
This is exactly like that episode of South Park where Kenny would eat anything for money.
Oh yeah, he would do anything. He went up Mrs. Crabtree's hooter for money and lived in there.
This is awful.
I thought you were going to say this is the South Park episode where they eat with their butt and poop out their mouth. That's another one.
Right, the missing kid. Oh, God. This is already a South Park episode of Newsworthy. That's perfect. All right. Well, Bryan Gewirtz shoots down reports that The Rock couldn't get into ring shape for WrestleMania 39. Bryan Gewirtz went on a little bit of a tear, going after wrestling media recently. And he was on Bill Simmons' podcast talking about this, among other things. Let's talk about Bryan Gewirtz and $7.
Bryan Gewirtz hates wrestling reporters, apparently,
as one should.
He was actually talking kind of nice about reporters and stuff. He was more talking about writers going to reporters and saying all these things and airing dirty laundry and airing grievances and everything. And then of course the reporters report it and blah blah blah. He's if wrestlers do it, it's one thing. And then he was also mentioning of how fans just got to be smarter about deciphering some of this stuff. And he called out the report that David wrote of Rock can't get into ring shape for this. And this thing, as Gewirtz mentioned, did take on a life of its own. Roman mentions this on the Tonight Show. Paul Heyman is asked about this in a recent interview with Jimmy Traina. This thing is picked up a lot of steam of this is why The Rock couldn't do it type of thing. And Gewirtz is that's not true. That's not the reason Rock didn't want to do this or couldn't do this or whatever. If Rock wanted to do, and it didn't make a whole lot of sense when it first came out of does The Rock not know when WrestleMania is? Does he not understand this? The Rock trains year round at everything. The man's and I understand ring shape different from training shape, lifting weights, clanging and banging and all that fun stuff. But The Rock knows when WrestleMania is. He knows when he needs to work and try to get in peak form and everything. But people were still oh, did Rock he didn't know when it was. He didn't want to do the work, as Cody Rhodes would say. He didn't want to finish his story. But people believed it, and it took on a life of its own. And Gewirtz is like, yeah, that's not the reason. Simmons should have asked, well, what the hell was the reason? But didn't go there with it.
Man, if Bill Simmons had asked that, we would have had some closure to this story.
We're going to keep getting it. Rock's going to show up at the end of Mania. Roman's winning, and then The Rock's going to come out at the end of the show.
Wow, we're gonna if you smell the ending?
Yeah.
With Bryan in tow. Bryan's going to be the new heel manager for The Rock. They're going to do a double turn.
Heyman. They're going to, yeah.
Oh my God, here we go. Gewirtz and Heyman?
Yeah. They famously fought backstage one time.
That's true. They did. If there's one thing that two Jewish men are really good at, it's throwing down.
I'm sorry for spoiling the end of WrestleMania, everybody, but this is what's going to happen. Roman and Rock facing off while Heyman and Gewirtz are by their side looking at each other angrily and putting their dukes up like that.
Like the Miz's dad, like George Mizanin did?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Where does Dave Schilling fit into all this? Did you see that WrestleMania 35?
I did.
Twitter?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
That was a good thread.
It was a great thread. Where's Nia Jax?
Where is Nia Jax? So she's doing a lot of virtual signings from what I can tell. Good on her. Get that money, Nia Jax.
Yeah, that's right. Fix your hole.
I think it's fixed. It just like hurts, right? Just ice it up.
Hey, listen, I'm just letting it sit out there in the ether.
You're letting her hole sit in the ether. That doesn't seem very kind.
Well, that's how you fix it.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, someone else needs fixing. That's Bryan Danielson. He provided an update on his condition coming out of AEW Revolution on the Unconsciously Coupled podcast, discussing his mental health and his physical health. This is a really interesting interview, and Danielson really doesn't do many appearances other than on the Bellas podcast with now the Garcia twins. So talk to me about Danielson on this Unconsciously Coupled podcast.
See, I swerved everybody, and people may have thought that I was going to go with Bryan Danielson wants to write a book called Why Men Are the Better Sex. Why men are better, the stronger, faster, smarter, better overall sex is I'm pretty sure what the book title was called for Danielson. But it was a joke, and he talked about sleeping habits and things like that. This is news writing tips. Hit the music, Joel. Jeremy's news writing tips. Joel, what are we doing? God, can I get a professional on this show? So you mentioned the Bella Garcia podcast is now known. I listened to that because big news in the Bella world. They are now the Garcias. They have left WWE. They're doing their own thing. They're not going to AEW. And they kind of talked a little bit about it on their new podcast, which is now the Nikki and Bree show. Not the Garcia podcast. It's the Nikki and Bree show. And Bree had mentioned, Bryan and I just did this podcast, Conscious Uncoupling. I was like, oh, well, that sounds like something I will want to listen to. I didn't think we'd get like any wrestling stuff because the title of the podcast kind of lends itself to, hey, you're probably not getting wrestling stuff on this show. But I listened to it because it's Danielson, and I wanted the Danielson headline pop, and I got one of those out of there. But I also got the Danielson talking about his physical and mental health coming out of Revolution because it was recorded after Revolution. He just provided a small update on things. I don't think there's anything groundbreaking in there, but this is more to get back to the news writing stuff. You listen to one podcast, you hear that this person may have done another podcast. This happened. I did it with Regal before. You hear that this person may have done another podcast, and then you can listen to that, and then you can find something, because I never would have known that they did this podcast, Danielson and Bree, until I listened to the Garcia podcast. And then it just spirals, and then you can create stories out of stories out of stories out of stories. They never stop. So there's always something to do, Joel. That's what I always tell myself and tell my team. So there's always something to do, and it was a good interview. It was about a lot of life and relationships and things like that. But anytime I can listen to a Bryan Danielson podcast, I'm always happy with that. And hearing about his life with Brie Bella and him, Brie Garcia, sorry. Here's a story of the podcast that I didn't write about, but I want to mention it here. So AEW Revolution, he did the match and everything, and he goes home. So I guess Napa is close to San Francisco. I'm terrible with locations and things like that, but he could have gotten home that night. He could have slept in his own bed, could have just been fine, been with his wife and kids in the morning and everything. They have a dog. This dog is apparently very loud when like people come and go, which most dogs kind of are, you know? So he didn't want to come in at like 3 a.m. and wake Bree, Birdie, and Buddy when he came in and the dog makes a ruckus and everything. So Bryan drove to Napa, like 5 minutes away from home, and stayed in a hotel that night. So he did not wake up his wife and kids at 3 o'clock in the morning because the dog was going to cause chaos and wake them up. So there you go. There's a Bryan Danielson life story for everybody. And you can hear more Bryan Danielson life stories on Imagine Thinking This Podcast Ain't the Goat with Bryan Danielson and Jeremy Lambert coming to a podcast feed near you sometime in the future.
Thanks. I have to edit again. Thank you for that. This was a good podcast until that moment.
Sorry, you got to do some work, Joel Pearl.
I have plenty of work to do. Anyway.
There's always something to do, right? I just said it. Listen to the podcast.
That's true. Listen to the podcast. Although when you posted that, someone was like, no, in the comments.
When was this? When did I post?
You posted a short from one of our episodes a while back where you were like, listen to the podcast to get the full context. And someone replied, no.
Fair. Honestly, fair. Look, I've said this before. I've said this on Twitter. Is like, people, I always tell people to listen to the podcast and stuff. And I think it was Cam. Cam was like, people should actually like listen to this stuff and get the full context and stuff. I'm like, well, they won't. And that's why I'm going to have a job forever, because I will continue to write these stories to get all this engagement for other accounts.
Well, here's some engagement for you. Paul Wight says, I want to work with Kenny Omega. We could rip the roof off the building. Speaking of Deuce and Mo, Paul Wight suddenly has aspirations of ripping roofs off of places instead of driving monster trucks off of them.
I didn't expect this to be like a big deal, but you're right. Like about engagement, like this blew up on Twitter and I'm like, huh? What? Sure. Why not? And the thing is like, so this is art of headline writing, I guess, because like he names about 15 different people that he wants to work with in this article. He's like, oh, I'd love to work with Kenny. I'd love to work with Darby. We'd have a great like big man, little man match, the way he sells and everything. I'd love to work with Orange Cassidy, but we'd have to like team because I'd get annoyed with trying to sell his kicks and everything. It's like, oh, Wardlow, Satnam Singh, I'd love to tag with him. And then maybe I turn on him. Dark Order. I always joke that I'm a member of Dark Order. He names like 15 people that he wants to work with on this thing, but he has the specific Kenny Omega line. And I'm like, this headline is going to be better than Paul Wight names who he wants to work with in AEW, including Kenny Omega, Wardlow, Hobbs, something like that. Like it's not catchy. That's not engaging. The Kenny Omega thing, clearly engaging. Did I think it was going to be this engaging? No, I just thought like, oh, this is just a better headline than a generic one. Let's go with it. And all of a sudden I see the numbers. I'm like, sure, everybody. I think this match has got to be booked now. I think it should be. Like, clearly there's a clamoring for this one. So get on it, Tony. Make this happen.
I'm so excited for it. There's been enough talk. It's time for that. And everyone's just like, do we have to? This is Paul Wight straight out of the Hulk Hogan school of brother.
Yeah.
Just naming everyone he wants to work with and trying to get himself booked into whatever program he could. You know what? Kudos to Paul Wight. He's been at it long enough that he deserves to have that opportunity to talk about who he wants to work. So good on him. Would you like to see Paul Wight versus Kenny Omega?
Sure. Honestly, like there's nothing wrong with this. Omega will bump a little bit. Omega will throw like his strikes and knees and everything. He's not going to obviously hit like suplexes or anything like that. He's not going to be able to do some of his power-based offense, but he can certainly do like his striking and aerial-based offense to Wight. Sure, to be like a fine little like 6-minute match or something. I mean, nothing wrong with it. Kenny Omega is fucking great. Let's be honest here. Like Kenny Omega is great. And Paul Wight at this point, I imagine knows his limitations enough to not try to go out there and be like, yeah, let's have a 15-minute classic or anything. Remember when Kane and Paul Wight did like chain wrestling for like 3 minutes. These people are like, oh, we've seen this match 100 times. So they just got there, they like chain wrestle. That ruled. That was so funny.
I do remember that. I was talking to someone about that a little while ago. So yeah, that's definitely at the forefront of our minds from now on. Paul Wight, chain wrestling aficionado.
They should chain wrestle with Omega. Like solid headlock takeover. Omega goes into a head scissors. Wight kips up. And Omega throws a forearm hammerlock. Wight rolls through the hammerlock. Come back up. Another headlock takeover. Omega kicks up. Big standoff.
And the crowd goes,
this is awesome.
No.
This is awesome.
No. It's fight forever.
No, that's banned. They got sued for that.
Right. It's fight eventually, as we've discussed.
They can't chant that. Tony's got to pay like $100 every time the fans chant that. So they can't do it.
It's either that or you have to lend out the wrestler to whom the chant is being chanted. So Kenny Omega is going to be on a bunch of GCW shows.
No, shit. Paul Wight in GCW would be great. That would fucking rule.
Paul Wight versus Big Vin. Let's go.
Oh, Paul Wight gets Nick Gage. Are you kidding me?
Awesome. Paul Wight versus Jimmy effing Lloyd. There it is. That one's for Steven Jensen. And so is this one. Cody Rhodes says after WrestleMania would be a good time for management to step in and split the titles. He is on the Bart Winkler show. Oh my God, that's the best name ever. Bart Winkler. I need to hear more about this. Yeah, Cody talking about the title splitting, which is what everyone else has on their mind once Cody wins the titles at WrestleMania.
Yeah, Cody's done a lot of media interviews, right? Like he just speaks to everybody. But this is a big topic. Like people want to know what's going to happen with the titles and everything. People have been saying, hey, let's split them for forever now. It's been a year. It's been almost a year since they got unified with Roman and Brock, and people have been saying, let's split them. So I think like if and when Cody wins at WrestleMania, that's going to be the thing of like, okay, how are you going to do it? And Cody's just laid out there like, hey, maybe management just steps in, and he seems like that'll be the way to do it. So the fact that Cody commented on this, I don't think in all the media he's done, he's really commented on the title splitting. So I was, happy to hear somebody ask about that and Cody to comment on this. And, we'll see if they end up going this route. Like there's been so much talk about the title split, and I don't know if there's like a great way to do it. I don't want management to step in. I think that's stupid. I had my idea of Roman loses like one of them in a triple threat match type of thing. I've had a few ideas. They clearly aren't going any of this. What do you think, Joel? How do you think they can do a title split that like makes sense and satisfies the majority? Which
they can't, or they do exactly what Cody's saying and have management step in, because you know what? Those people love you all who are watching shows like these and all the post shows. Yeah, not the majority. You're not.
It's true. I mean, it's true.
You and I talked about this on I think this show, where we joked about having Cody put the WWE Championship around Dusty's bronze statued weight. And like, honestly, they could just do that. And then he walks out and he's just holding the Blue Universal title, and that's it. Or
he doesn't want that one though. He doesn't want that one. He wants to carry around that WWE title.
That's true. And he even says so much in the interview. But I think honestly, it's going to be something like, I respect these titles, but I don't need both of them, SmackDown or whatever. Like the WWE deserves to have a Universal Champion and a WWE Champion. Like they'll babyface it, but then they'll make it look like Cody's a stupid babyface by giving up one of the world titles. At the same time, other people will look at it and be like, maybe Cody's not so stupid because now he doesn't have to work Fridays. So Cody
wants to though. No, Cody wants that schedule. He's mentioned that a million times too. Do the work, Joel.
Yeah, but
write the story.
Yeah,
write every sentence. Don't skip paragraphs. Capitalize the first word of every sentence.
Dot your I's, cross your T's, right?
Yeah.
But anyway, I don't think even WWE knows. I don't think Paul Levesque and his creative crew, headed by Vince McMahon, I don't think they know what's going to happen. Maybe Brock Lesnar is going to walk in after defeating Omos and be like, "That's my title," or sorry, we'd be like, "That's my title," And then
your Brock voice sucked. That was like what
was
voice
close
did
to
you
Vince.
do?
It was
Yeah,
close.
you did a Vince voice.
God damn it, that's my title. Yeah.
What if Vince just walks out and just
With
like,
the mustache there.
he won his last WrestleMania match. Like,
It's true.
you know,
I'm undefeated.
so, yeah, he has claim that he could get that title. Vince and Michael Cole for the WWE Universal title.
Jerry Lawler for the 24/7 championship.
That should be the match.
Oh my goodness. That's it. That's what you do. Yeah, Cody winning both titles is the play. And what you do with both titles, yeah, you kind of give them away. Or because we all know it's going to be Cody versus Karrion Kross in Puerto Rico, where super Cuban babyface Cody is going to go over, right? That's what's happening. So maybe we'll give Karrion Kross the title for SmackDown.
Roman's going to give one of the titles to Heyman to defend against Bryan Gewirtz in the other WrestleMania 40 main event. That's what it's going to be.
I'm actually okay with that. I think that's we can't go any better than that. So try it in the comments. You can, but I don't know if you'll get any better than that. Jeremy, let's plug all of Steven Jensen's work and then get out of here.
Don't follow me on Twitter. Follow Steven Jensen on Twitter at @FightTalk_. I actually do have things to plug this week. We've done. I put over these people on Twitter, and I'm gonna put them over here on this show as well. We've done a lot of interviews over the past month. Sean does interviews with a bunch of people. He had WWE talent. He still had like Rumble interviews left over. Joel, you went to Elimination Chamber and did a bunch of interviews. Scotty Wrestling is doing a lot of Joshi interviews. Grapsody does a lot of interviews with like AEW talent. Jensen and I, we've done a lot of independent interviews, and then Mike and Reg this past week had Effie on, so they're doing some independent interviews as well. We've done a lot of interviews between Fightful and Fightful Overbooked. I got to give a shout out to William Thatch, who does all the transcription, or a good bulk of the transcription work for a lot of these interviews. And you know, he gets a byline, but he's very unsung in the transcription work that he does for the bulk of these interviews, because he's not very active on social media or anything like that. But as someone who, if Thatch doesn't transcribe the interview, I'm probably transcribing the interview. And as someone who just transcribes all these other interviews that are just out there in the world, I know how difficult it is. I know how time consuming it can be. I know how tedious it can be. So shout out to Thatch for doing all the transcription work for a good chunk of these interviews. And then shout out to the news team, Robert DeFelice, Colin Tessier, and Skylar Russell, who do a lot of the articles off of these. If I'm not writing the article, and I usually write the articles that are pertinent to my articles, but if I'm not writing them, one of them is writing the article based off of the transcription. So a lot of interviews, a lot of exclusives on Fightful and Fightful Overbooked, that are all the articles you see on Fightful is done by, the transcriptions are done by William or myself, and then the articles are done by myself, DeFelice, Colin, or Skylar. So shout out to the team for all the work they've done. And I know we're going to have a lot more work to do with Mania in a couple of weeks, because I know there's going to be a ton of interviews coming out of that as well. So yeah, just want to give a shout out to the news and transcription team over at Fightful.
And shout out to you, Jeremy Lambert. I'll never say it publicly, but you're very good at what you do.
Thanks, Joel. That was almost sincere.
You're okay, I guess. You know what, though? We always have this. Have anything else you want to put over before we get out of here?
Do go check out the interview that Mike and Reg did with Effie on Fightful Overbooked. That's on Indeed. Go check that out. Really fun interview. We already got one article up. By the time people listen to this, we might have a second article up, but there's at least one up right now. There's a couple more coming. Go check out that interview. Go check out all the other stuff on Fightful Overbooked that Joel can probably do a better job plugging than I can.
Check out Tag Talk. Check out Indeed with Reg and Mike, as we just mentioned. Kate and Joel Call in the Ring every Sunday at 8 o'clock Eastern, although this week it's going to be a little messy. I'll tell you why in a second.
Wait a second, Joel. So instead of Joel and Kate plus 8, can I call it Joel and Kate at 8?
That's actually pretty good. We could do that.
Yeah, look at me.
There you go.
This is why I get paid the big bucks, everybody.
Yeah, that's good. I like that. I could take that. Get coexisting with Rob and Maggie. Check out Bread Club. Check out all of the content here on Fightful Overbooked. There's gaming streams. There's everything. We got so much content. We have this show that drops every Saturday at 10:13 a.m. So Eastern time. So come and hang out with us. I am at Joel Pearl, JoelPearl. I will be at Greektown Wrestling tonight as of Saturday, and Sunday I'll be at GCW, all in Toronto. If you're there, come and say hi. If you're a wrestler who happens to be watching this show for some reason, let's chat. Ladies, gentlemen, friends beyond the binary. We'll see you in the next one. Cheers.